complicated kind of thoughts and feelings on the writer of Philip Pullman. Now, the only piece of work that I can actually claim of his I've actually watched through was the 2007 film adaptation of his book The Northern Lights, adapted as The Golden Compass. Now, I am aware they also did an adaptation of his book series into his Dark Materials, a BBC series which ran for 3 seasons or 3 series from 2019 to 2022. Which I did have family members who watched that one, but I personally decided to skip it. Only because, I don't know, I've always had a bit of a dislike towards fantasy, like pure fantasy. I mean, there are some fantastical franchises that I have been able to get into, like the Harry Potter series, that had elements of fantasy, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that's one of my favourite TV shows, and that has elements of fantasy. But just pure areas of fantasy I always seem to struggle on. However, there was one adaptation of a set of Philip Pullman books, I didn't actually know this was based on his works, that I'll admit I always had a quiet intrigue in. And that was the 2 made-for-TV films released in 2006 and 2007 of his books, The Sally Lockhart Mysteries. Now, this was a series that consisted of 4 books: The Ruby in the Smoke, The Shadow in the North, The Tiger in the Well, and The Tin Princess. These apparently were all selected to be adapted, however, they only ever managed to adapt the first 2 books in the series, Ruby in the Smoke and The Shadow in the North. But I always had a slight intrigue about these particular adaptations, namely because of the lead. Because of the lead in these 2 films was Billie Piper, who at the time, when this was first released in 2006, she had recently left Doctor Who. So I remember kind of seeing magazines and newspaper articles stating that this was her next big thing after leaving Doctor Who, which I can kind of understand. And watching this through, as a person who hasn't read the books, I personally found the first film, The Ruby in the Smoke, to be really enjoyable. I mean, would I get more interest out of it if I had read the books? Possibly. But for a person who just remembered a TV film from 18 years ago, I actually found this really interesting. For those who don't know, the first of these 2 films, The Ruby in the Smoke, is based on a book from 1985. Actually, the whole series was from 1985 to 1994. However, The Ruby in the Smoke was first published in 1985, and this TV version first aired on TV on the 27th of December 2006. It stars a young woman named Veronica, or as she prefers to go by her father's nickname for her, Sally Lockhart, played by Piper, who lives with her not necessarily physically abusive, but rather mentally abusive mother. And she finds herself mixed up in a mystery involving her father, a sunken ship, and a mysterious jewel, a priceless ruby, that apparently she has a perfectly good claim for. However, she finds out that another woman named Mrs. Holland, played by Julie Walters, and her second-in-command Samuel Selby, played by Robert Glenister, are also looking for the ruby, and they plan to knock her out the picture or do anything they can to get their hands on it. To which Sally ends up getting together a new family and a base of friends for herself, consisting of a failing photographer named Frederick Garland, played by J.J. Field, his sister, Rosa Garland, played by Hayley Atwell, a young girl named Adelaide, played by Chloe Walker, a mysterious man who they go to for help named Matthew, twins named Matthew and Nicholas Bedwell, played by David Harewood, and actually another Doctor Who connection is apparently the debut performance of Matt Smith, playing Jim Taylor, a man who works at the offices where Sally first goes when she finds out about this, and he ends up helping her along the way. This was apparently the TV debut of Matt Smith, who would later go on to play the 11th Doctor in Doctor Who, which Piper had left, from 2010 until 2013. And I do remember when Smith was working on Doctor Who for, I think it was for the Day of the Doctor, he and David Tennant were working together, and they did a set of interviews where they revealed that one of the questions they were asked was, if you could steal one thing from each other's Doctor, what would you take? To which I think David Tennant said he would take Matt Smith's TARDIS because, well, he kind of liked it. It was kind of gothic and atmospheric. And Smith said, well, I'd take Rose because I've worked with Billy before and she's brilliant. I love her. To which, yeah, I do kind of see that with here. It's also nice for me to see Julie Walters as Mrs. Holland in a villainous role. Now, I think the mark of a good actor is if one of the marks of good actors, I think, if they can play one role and make you love them, and then play a completely different role and make you hate them, that's usually a mark of a good actor, if they can play both sides. And having mainly seen Julie Walters in kind of loving roles, or at the very least kind of pleasant roles, such as Molly Weasley in Harry Potter, Rosie Mulligan in Mamma Mia, and Patchouli Gordino in Dinner Ladies, to see her go kind of full villain here, I actually thought was really refreshing and showed to me that Julie Walters is a great actor. Ultimately, as a person who hasn't actually read the original books based on this, as a person who just remembered a TV film from 18 years ago, I honestly was really enjoying The Ruby and the Smoke. I have also got The Shadow in the North, but which I may or may not watch in the fullness of time. They never adapted the other two books, The Tiger in the Well and The Tin Princess. But you never know, that was back in 2006, and maybe these days with more streaming services than ever before, maybe, like I said, Netflix, Amazon Prime, or one of the other ones will adapt this. Maybe Hulu will adapt the full series of the Sally Lockhart mysteries. But you know what, I came to this mainly with a Doctor Who mindset because of Billy Piper, and you know what, it proved to be a lot more. So if you haven't yet seen The Ruby and the Smoke or The Shadow in the North from 2006 or 2007, I urge you, give them another chance. You might just find yourself enjoying them. Anyway, there's my quick little review of The Ruby and the Smoke. What I think of The Shadow in the North? Well, maybe I'll review that another time. Anyway, until next time, see ya.